that, Elvis Andrus and Adrian Beltre, both of whom are in the news today. Elvis will be honored, and I swear, Jeff, from our lips to the Hall of Fame committee of one, the Hall of Fame committee's ears, just yesterday, we said, is anybody going into the Hall of Fame this year? We didn't think so. Today we find out there is. It's Elvis Andrus.
Yeah, and you think about the first World Series teams and all the great players who are on it. I mean, he's I think becomes the fifth member of the Hall of Fame, the Rangers Hall of Fame, from those teams: Michael Young, Kinsler, Hamilton, and Beltre. So now Andrus, and you can't separate him from those teams and from that great era of Rangers baseball. And he in 2017 had his best year, was Rangers Player of the Year. After Adrian retired, the duties of the face of the franchise fell to Elvis, and I'm not sure he was comfortable in that role necessarily, but he always smiled, always had a good time, always was great with the media. And look, he's their all-time stolen base leader. He was a two-time All-Star. So Elvis belongs in the Rangers Hall of Fame. If you think about great Rangers players who meant so much to the club, Elvis is the guy. Elvis is a guy who belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And Jumpy Jenny just said it was Elvis and Adrian that made her a Rangers fan. And the reality is the joy with which the two of them played the game made so many people fans, right? And so Jeff mentioned those 10 and 11 teams. And, of course, Adrian wasn't even on that 10 team, but he did get there for the 11 season. But the 15 and 16 teams,
sure,
those were Adrian and Elvis.
Yeah, the 16 team, people forget, had the best record in the American League.
Yeah.
They were the one seed. They bowed out very quickly in the postseason. The 15 team felt a feel-good team, raced back from a large deficit and caught and passed the Astros.
Unlike the last day of the season, right?
Cole Hamels was kind of the main guy behind that. Beltre was hurt that year. Chu had an unbelievable September. And then Elvis, Game 5 against the Blue Jays, commits 2 errors. Just a crushing moment for him. And he stood up afterward in Rogers Center and faced the media. He didn't shy away from it. He was a good teammate. And so I think that, those teams, that era until the 23 team came along, were the best times in franchise history. And he was Mr. Good Times, aggressive on the bases, brought up by Ron Washington, just all these things that make him a candidate for the Hall of Fame. And it really, I think the Rangers were just waiting for him to retire.
Yeah, they were. And he came back and retired a Ranger. And so now he will be honored in the Hall of Fame. It's on June 22nd, and that'll be the day to mark on your calendar. You'll want to get some tickets to that game if you can, as Elvis goes in. I think it was the note that John Blake sent out. He's the 27th?
27th member,
27th Hall of Famer. Typically what the Rangers try to do is put a player or somebody from the field of play in one year and somebody who was not on the field of play in the next year. But in any event, this is a year for a player, and really none better, as Jeff mentioned, than Elvis Andrus to be deserving of this honor, because whether he liked it or not, whether he liked that sort of face of the franchise deal, he became it because he was always so agreeable to do interviews with the media and always had that smile and that fun that he demonstrated even without Adrian, but certainly that reached its zenith when he and Adrian were a part of that wonderful hijinks that became legendary in this organization.
Yeah, and last year when Adrian was inducted to the Hall of Fame, he took time out during his speech to single out Elvis and called him a pain in his butt and all of that stuff. But to Jenny's comment, they made people fans. Their joy, and baseball's a game. Let's be honest. And you want to have fun. doing your job. I mean, John, we like having our job. We have a good
Yes.
time, and then, I mean, I always tell people, they're like, oh, sports writer, what a great job. And I'm like, well, there are assholes at every job, but for the most part, this is a great job. And what those two did, they just had fun. And when you're having fun, you're better.
You are, and it's infectious. And, in a way, I think that whole conversation we had yesterday about the psychological aspect of this game and how it can be just so overwhelming to guys psychologically. Elvis and Adrian were a couple of examples of guys that did not get bogged down by that, at least not when Adrian was here. I would submit to you, and I think he's even talked about this, he let the weight of everything get to him a bit too much in Seattle, right?
He did.
And he realized, that's not who I am. I can't play that way. I got to play like I played when I was a teenager with the Dodgers, or when I was even younger than that in the Dominican.
Yeah, it really came to the forefront again last year, leading up to the Hall of Fame, from the moment he was voted for induction to the actual enshrinement, the actual induction. He talked about how the Rangers allowed him to be who he needed to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was Elvis, because Elvis farted around with him, brought it out, and at the time, it was a huge contract, 6 and 96. I believe at the time it was the largest contract the Rangers had ever given out, and but he didn't feel the weight of it. I mean, look, when he signed right after New Year's of 2011. They're coming off the 2010 season when they went to the World Series for the first time. Josh Hamilton was the MVP.
Yeah.
Michael Young was the all-time hits leader. Kinsler was an all-star, and this team was just at a moment right there where they didn't need the guy with the biggest contract to be the savior. They had a lot of star power, and so I think that took kind of a load off of them. But then, the way that Ron Washington managed. And even to an extent, John Daniels, putting the team around Adrian and allowing him to play without pressure, it really set off what really was the best stretch of his career. I mean, when T.R. Sullivan wrote this for the Rangers Today, my old website. Adrian Beltre, when he came to the Rangers, was not a Hall of Fame player. He became a Hall of Famer with the Rangers, with the 30 homer seasons and hitting for the cycle and all that stuff. And it was because, in part, he felt at ease, which directly goes to Elvis. And he gave credit to Elvis many times during that week in Cooperstown.
Yeah, and it definitely goes to John Daniels and to Ron Washington, who he also credited, because they told him, it wasn't just sort of do by example or, kind of watch the atmosphere around this team. It was basically, we're telling you, play like you want to play like you, be you, right? And once they did, he did. And actually, Elvis was still such a young player,
right?
That he was probably looking at Adrian going, we get to have this much fun?
Yeah.
Because a lot of guys take it so seriously. And Adrian did not let Elvis do that. And they both thrived. They both flourished, as did the team during that time when they were together. The statue of Pudge is on one side of the building. The statue of Nolan Ryan is on the other side of the building. The statue of Adrian Beltre is going to go at the northeast entrance and exit, I guess, of Globe Life Field. And the question becomes, and we'd love you to weigh in on the chat, is there any doubt what the pose should be?
Right. Now,
some people might say the pose should be him moving the on-deck circle, right? Some people might say it should be throwing the glove at Elvis. Some might say it should be a hand touching his head. No. It's Elvis. I mean, it's Adrian on one knee.
Yeah, and Tyler mentioned that in the chat. And, I even think that Adrian kind of has his own logo, and that's his logo. So I would assume that if he had a say in this statue, first of all, I'm willing to bet that Adrian does not like the idea of having a statue.
No.
He's very humble and
Yeah.
doesn't seek out the attention. But he's getting one. And it has to be one knee. And if he had a say with the artist who's doing this, then I'm assuming that's what it is. And you're right. He completely deserves to have a little input, I'd say, on what he looks like for posterity's sake. And it'll be fun. It's going to be on a Friday night, August the 22nd. The Elvis induction is a Saturday night, June the 28th. That's my anniversary, so I may not be there. But anyway, I'm looking forward to both. And any way to keep these two guys involved. Elvis, as we found out last week, is going to be on the television broadcast pre and post game, a limited amount. So we're going to see a lot of them in retirement. He still lives in the area, whereas Adrian lives in Southern California. But it's still nice to see him. And I don't know if the Rangers want him as a special assistant, but I'm sure that that's kind of where these guys go off to pasture. Michael Young and Darren Oliver and Ian Kinsler and Colby Lewis from those teams are assistants to the GM, to the front office, I guess. But nevertheless, I think any time you can keep your most valued alumnus in the fold and in the public eye, it's good for the franchise. So all these things are nothing but positive.
They are, and I was just reading, and I can't remember who I was just reading about. Might have been Jim Edmonds, just trashing the Cardinals organization for forgetting all of those guys, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen with other organizations, and it's unconscionable to me. Like anybody who was anybody, Jim Edmonds, maybe, in the Cardinals organization, maybe as foremost among them as almost anyone. How do you not embrace that memory, that history, that legacy, right? And so, yes, the Rangers are doing a really good job, and actually always have. I mean, all of the, friends of mine, as they've become since we worked together on TV so long, always feel welcome. They always feel, very well cared for and appreciated as alums of this organization.
Yeah, and to your point, the Cardinals have such a rich baseball history, and they would bring back their Hall of Famers, and you'd see them in the red jackets lining up on opening day. Lou Brock and Bob Gibson, and Stan the Man, and Red Shandies, all these great players they've had, but maybe it's just hard to crack their Hall of Fame or whatever it is, but every baseball decade there's been a great Cardinals team, or at least one, and to not recognize that, to your point, to Jim Edmonds' point, is kind of shameful. But the Tigers, we were in Detroit one weekend, John, when they honored the 2016 was the 10-year anniversary. So Pudge came back, and that team, and they didn't win the World Series, but they were a great team, right? And the Rangers recognized the 10 and 11 teams, obviously, and counting down the last days of Globe Life Park. Would welcome back alumni to do the countdown or whatever it was. So there were a lot of things, and then the 50-year anniversary when Jeff Burrows came back, and all kinds of guys, and we talked about it yesterday when Juan Gonzalez came back. Just reuniting and bringing back the fans' favorite players too. So anyway, good stuff. Good for the Rangers, and. I think tickets are available now. I don't know.
Yep. I think they are, and we're
season
looking
tickets certainly
soon
are.
If they're not.
Season tickets certainly are.
And we're looking forward to those two dates, June 28th and August 22nd.
We all silly like the mayor.